Okay, so I work for a large, fairly prestigious PR firm. My sister studied media and communications at a pretty well-ranked state university, and I helped her secure an interview. She did well on the interview and became the top pick for the job. However, she's only been working for 3 months, and she's already complaining. She complains that the company undervalues her talents, which she believes is very clear from her resume and her college achievements. True, she was involved with a lot of student organizations, but that doesn't translate into the adult working world. Everyone starts out at the bottom and works their way up. My sister absolutely can't comprehend this and thinks because she was a big deal in university, she needs to be fast-tracked to a bigger role in this company. I've told her multiple times that this is just the way things work. Everyone goes through this. Hell, that new hire from Stanford we got 4 months before her has just moved from spreadsheets, assistant tasks, to basic events planning, smaller projects. I tell her if she wants a more integrated role, she should go to a much smaller firm that's much less hierarchical. But she wants the prestige of our large company as well. The issue is, my sister is such a golden fixture in my family. Everyone talks her up and treats her like she's already made it and famous, even though all she has in her belt are some leadership positions in her student clubs. I think she's gotten a huge ego from all of this, and she keeps pushing me to get her more responsibility and find her projects that are better suited for her talents. I tell her she hasn't earned more responsibility yet, and she just needs to be good at what they've given her now. As of now, she barely bothers to complete the few tasks that's given to her because she doesn't think they matter. It's no surprise people aren't giving her more, because no one thinks she's even competent at the bare minimum. My parents are pretty much bothering me 24/7, especially when my sister calls them upset and in tears. I'm so sick of it, but I don't want to sour terms with my family altogether. What can I do? Say to my sister to help her understand how things work? Has anyone been in this position? My advice: never get your family with zero life experience outside of college a job at a company you only work at, not own. Eventually, they are going to make you look bad for even referring them when they have an inevitable meltdown. OP needs to let her know she is the one with the least experience, and eventually, everyone will dislike her and stop dealing with her. I've been with my fiancé for almost 10 years, and we're finally getting married late this year. He has 2 little sisters that I adore from his dad's second marriage. I've watched them grow up, and they consider me their big sister. His mother I love as well, but she has a tendency to be a little kooky at times, to downright crazy other times. But she's a good woman who's gone through some stuff, so we try to cut her some slack. Earlier tonight, I was talking to her, and she had bought me some lovely bride stuff. It's a cute book on wedding planning, and a tote with bride on it. I kind of mention offhandedly that we need to plan a girls' party to start planning. She's super stoked on it, but then tells me, let's do the planning party without the girls and stepmom. I and and mention how I want it to be a coming together for everyone of sorts. But she starts to get emotional, talking about how she's my mother-in-law, and that the planning should be predominantly me, her, and my mother. I drop the subject, but later, she reiterates in text that we need to plan our small party. To add, stepmom has been nothing but kind to me. Her sister runs a party planning business, offered to provide us with all the tables and chairs for our wedding for free. And her relationship with my fiancé's dad is something we try to emulate in our own relationship. Anyway, I guess what it comes down to is that I want everyone to be part of the planning process. But how do I approach this with my mother-in-law without her getting super emotional, jealous? I'd really like to make her happy with this because, tangentially, my fiancé's brother is getting married in another country, which she will not be able to attend due to health problems. So my wedding is going to be her only shot at having a chance at being at her son's wedding. But I also don't want to not include my little sister-in-laws, who, at 11 and 8, are both also super jazzed about helping me plan this thing. First question: who's paying for this? As long as it's not exclusively her, OP can tell her she understands she wants some one-on-one bonding time, but the whole wedding will not be like that. It's important to OP to have the people she has mentioned involved in the planning process, and they're going to be. If she flips out over that, OP needs to tell her she can have all the time she needs to accept the situation, but OP hopes she comes around sooner rather than later, because OP will be going ahead and scheduling planning meetings with everyone in insert X days, weeks, whatever here. And OP needs to make sure her fiancé's on the same page as she is, so he can tell her more firmly to knock it off if need be. Update. After reading all your input, I decided to respond to my mother-in-law's text. Basically told her we love her and definitely want her to feel like her input is valued in the planning process. But this whole planning party idea is meant to be a coming together of all the women in all of our family to start with some very basic planning. But really the whole reasoning behind this is to have a fun little party where the women in my family can get to know more women in his family. All of them. I reiterated that her input is valued and that I'd love to come over and show her dresses I've been looking at one-on-one, and to let me know if she has any ideas for projects that she would like to take over. Her response was not really what I wanted, but it helped me make a decision on this. I will be okay. I can be okay. I'm a lady. So as long as you make me feel like fiancé's mom in this process, which I am, then it should be fine. This day just can't be about stepmom, and I won't let it be. Better than expected, but not great. Probably gonna have to scrap the planning party idea and do small get-togethers with everyone behind her back. Not what I wanted, but I'd rather have separate and happy than together and unhappy. I don't want her starting something with my sister-in-law's mother in front of them just because she feels slighted. It's just not worth it. My husband, 47 male, and I, 42 female, have been together for 8 years and married for 5 years. He has one biological daughter, 27 female, that is pretty much the black sheep of his family. When we first met, she was 19. He constantly complained about how bratty, arrogant, ungrateful, annoying, and rude she was, among other things, suspecting that she is a lesbian and calling her the derogatory names for gay people and calling her whitewashed. I was afraid to meet her at first, and when I finally met her, I was shocked. She was very polite and welcomed, although she was reserved. My children, 3 girls and 1 boy, and I asked her about herself. She was in college at the time, pursuing 2 degrees and working part-time. She seemed very wholesome, proper, and ambitious. She was honestly nothing like I expected her to be. I thought perhaps she was putting on a front for me. I did notice that my husband's family, particularly my mother-in-law and husband, was very nitpicky and fault-finding with her, criticizing her about anything that they could find. As time went on, I noticed that my stepdaughter rarely came around, much to everyone's chagrin. But when she did, she was pleasant and quite honestly the perfect daughter. As much as I love my kids, I do wish they were more like her in the sense that she is a hard-working, independent, never really gets into trouble, poised, intelligent, and polite. She has had moments. The only negative thing that I can say about her is that she can be messy, sarcastic at times, and blunt, opinionated. But overall, she is a great kid. My husband would always complain about her and how she's never around. I honestly wondered why myself, being that she had this great family and a wonderful father. Until my husband and I got engaged, my mother-in-law started to become more hostile towards my kids and myself. She became very passive-aggressive, moody, and petty. She started inserting herself into our relationship and giving her unwarranted opinions regarding our relationship, because my husband will moronically tell her everything, and how I raise my kids. She started criticizing my children and myself on any and everything. She also started turning other members of the husband's family against my children and myself. I didn't want to think that my mother-in-law was jealous, but it became apparent when she made a comment a month before our wedding that she would have to share my husband, which I thought was weird, and it made me uncomfortable. My husband also did not stand up for myself or my children or say anything about my mother-in-law's comments, and pretty much stood up for her, which I found shocking, being that my children and I have been nothing but respectful to her. In my efforts to bond with my stepdaughter more, I took her to get her nails done, and I vented about my mother-in-law and my husband. Around this time, I noticed that my husband was controlling, jealous, moody, possessive, easily angered, petty, easily offended, and argumentative. I told her everything, and surprisingly, she said in so many words that I'm not telling her anything new, and she's not surprised by any of this at all. She's been dealing with things like this for 22 years, and that I had her sympathy, and told me to feel free to reach out if I ever needed to talk. Fast forward to now. We've been married for 5 years, and my husband, controlling, jealous, possessive, easily angered, petty, easily offended, moody, and argumentative. His mother, and the rest of, is still the same, if not worse, and he still never stands up to his mother and lets her treat him badly and boss him around. My stepdaughter is now 27. She's graduated with her master's, just bought her first home. She makes 6 figures and is living her best life. When I checked on Facebook IG yesterday, she's in Tulum with a few friends. My husband's family is now accusing her of being a snob and thinking that she is better than everyone. In September 2020, my mother-in-law sent her a very long, pontificating text, ripping her to shreds, accusing her of being ashamed of our family, telling her that she's forgotten where she's come from, preying on her downfall, and saying some other below-the-belt things. After that, she didn't respond and disappeared from our family completely. She resurfaced a month ago to attend a dinner on the anniversary of my brother-in-law's death. As always, she was pleasant, and my mother-in-law kept trying to get her attention, although my stepdaughter was trying to avoid her. Eventually, my mother-in-law pulled my stepdaughter aside to apologize and reconcile. 15 minutes later, my stepdaughter scurries into a room, frantically trying to get her purse and leave. My husband tried to see what was wrong, and my stepdaughter said she didn't want him too involved or caught up. My mother-in-law ran after my stepdaughter, closed the door, and told my husband, by the way, in front of company who looked bewildered and mortified, that she was trying to apologize to my stepdaughter, but my stepdaughter won't accept her apology. My mother-in-law said that my stepdaughter raised her voice at her and said rude things that I honestly don't even think are true. And stepdaughter said that my mother-in-law had a habit of saying and doing hurtful things when angered, which my mother-in-law denies. My stepdaughter said that she told my mother-in-law that she forgave her and wasn't harboring any grudges, but she is done with her. She added that she distances herself due to the drama, tension, and toxicity, to which my mother-in-law replied that there was no drama, tension, or toxicity, and that it was all in her head. My stepdaughter continued to stand up to my mother-in-law and not back down to her as my mother-in-law continued to act appalled and play the victim. My husband agreed with my mother-in-law, denied that she had ever said or done anything hurtful, despite the fact that a few weeks ago my husband was despondent due to something that she said to him because he had to reschedule painting her kitchen because he was on call for work, and pretty much took up for my mother-in-law, making my stepdaughter seem like the aggressor. I was shocked. However, I was proud of my stepdaughter for being the first and only person to call my mother-in-law out on her nonsense, stand up to her, set boundaries, and refuse to tolerate, enable her. My mother-in-law pretty much talks pure crap about my stepdaughter to anyone who will listen and has turned the entire family against her. My husband hasn't spoken to my stepdaughter since and speaks badly about her, making her seem like a brat who decided to cut off her family because she's too good for them now. Now that stepdaughter is out of the picture, I now feel like my kids and I are now the black sheep of the family. I now see why stepdaughter kept her distance and now envy the fact that she had got out of this dynamic. ETA. For those of you who ask why I chose to marry my husband and put up with his mom and family, please realize that not everything is black or white, and people are not all good or bad. My husband may be harsh with stepdaughter and myself, but I don't doubt that he loves her. He has always been there for her and myself, always provided for her and myself, and is protective of her and myself. There are moments when he is very loving, sweet, and caring. The same with my mother-in-law. She is a piece of work at times, but there are also times where she is loving, caring, and we have good times. When mother-in-law and I are getting along, the rest of the family and I, along with my children, are on good terms. When mother-in-law and I are at ends, the rest of the family follows suit. I will say with my husband, the good times are 75% and the bad is 25%. This is why it is hard to leave, and I can only imagine that this is the reason why stepdaughter put up with so much for so long. Edit. Not only am I financially dependent on him, but I feel like I have to work things out and pray that they get better due to my faith. Truthfully, we felt pressured to get married by our church and our pastor, my aunt, because she shamed us for fornicating and being together so long without being married. This is also my second marriage, and I don't want another failed marriage. I think OP needs to leave her stepdaughter alone and stop trying to vent to her. She got away from this situation and warned OP, and OP didn't listen. She is moving on with her life, and OP should not loop her back into this. OP should get a therapist and get a job. As OP said, she is financially dependent on her husband. OP says she doesn't want to leave this marriage, so there is really no advice to give. She wants to stay in this toxic situation and complain about it. That doesn't make sense.